Alright, Shalom. Before I begin, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha Kudash. I'd like to say double honors to my teachers, the apostles, and the elders of Great Millstone, the men whom I've learned this truth from, and also Shalom. And salutations to the brothers out there of the hopeful elect that are preaching this word in truth and sincerity. Alright, so I'm the brother Shaquat from the branch of Great Millstone, Montreal, back with another lesson. And this lesson is just going to be a continuation on a lesson that I did 2 days ago. And that was basically centered around Revelation, the 12th chapter. Alright, and in this lesson, I'm going to specifically focus on a particular point, and that's the sun and the moon, right? Which I focused on in the first segment of this lesson, but Lord willing, I get even more into detail. Alright, so this is Revelation 12 and verse 1. It says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet." Right, so just like in the last lesson, this woman is referring to the nation of Israel, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Right, and them being clothed with the sun and the moon is symbolic to them being covered, by wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Right, and that's the point that I wanted to focus on, the sun and the moon, because when you deal with the sun and the moon, when it's mentioned in the scriptures, depending on the context, it could refer to literally the sun and the moon, or it could be symbolic to wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Alright? And that's what I'm going to prove or get into in this lesson, showing that the sun and the moon, sometimes in the scriptures when mentioned, could be referring to wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Alright? But let me finish off this precept first. It says, "And upon her head a crown of 12 stars." Right? So that goes to show you that this woman is the nation of Israel, because there's 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. So that crown of 12 stars is symbolic to the nation of Israel. Right? So before I begin, let me start off here with the definition of the word illuminated or illuminate in the regular Google definition. Because when you deal with the sun and the moon, they're lights. Right? And what do lights do? Lights illuminate. They illuminate. They bring forth light. Alright? And also that word illuminate could be tied to the Illuminati, right? Meaning, matter of fact, let me get what definition of that word means. It says people claiming to possess special enlightenment or knowledge of something, right? And there's nothing, that word is not a bad word. It's not evil. It simply means somebody that's enlightened. And you could be either enlightened on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side. But today, when that word is used, people are thinking about it on the left hand, in the left-hand sense, right? Dealing with the Illuminati or the so-called white man, though they're enlightened in their wickedness, sorcery, witchcraft, and so on and so forth. But there's also a righteous side to that word Illuminati, which is the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of Yahweh Shema Shai. He could be illuminated on the right-hand side, right? But the word illuminated, it says in the Google definition, lit with bright lights, right? Illuminate, make something visible or bright by shining a light on it, light up, Similar words, light. Light up. Alright, so the sun and the moon are lights. What do? They light up. You know? So let's go from there to the book of Baruch, chapter 4 and verse 1, because the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of Yahweh Bashim Shai is a light. That's why Yahweh Shai said this. Or John. Yeah. John 1 and verse 9. It says, I'm going to start at verse 6. It says, there was a man sent from the Most High whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. And that light is Yahweh Shai. You know? And Yahweh Shai is the embodiment of the scriptures, right? The scriptures contain the spirit of Yahweh Shai, which is light, life. You know? So when you're actually reading the scriptures and you're getting fed by it, you're filling your mind with the scripture, you're enlightening yourself, you're brightening yourself. Oh, scriptures also speak about the path of the just that shineth more and more as a shining light, right? You know, oh wow, that's why scriptures also refer to what's that precept? The candlesticks. You know, 5 were wise, the foolish virgins. The 5 wise virgins and 5 foolish. They had a candlestick with light. Meaning that light was that. Wow. Matter of fact, I have to get it. Yeah. Matthew 25 and verse 1. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. Their lamps, right, would be symbolic to their vessels, to them, right? And them going to meet the bridegroom. Who's the bridegroom? The bridegroom is Yahweh Shai. You know? Verse 2. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. Right? So the wise, what did they do? They took oil, which oil is also another symbolic term to what? Understanding, with, or wisdom and knowledge. But the point being here is that in order for you to operate a lamp, you need oil. And by having oil, what happens? You get lit up. You start, you turn on a light. You start a fire, which is a light. But you need the oil to keep the light going so you can see where you're going. But that light is what? It's Yahweh Shai. Which is wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Once again, it ties to wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. All right, so when we go back to John 1 and verse 7, it says, the same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, so John was not that light, but he was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. That's right. That's Yahweh Shai. So I just showed, in the scriptures that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding could be synonymous or tied to light. Right? And another thing that's known as light is what? The moon and the stars. Matter of fact, let's prove that. This is the book of Genesis. Because the moon and the star, or Salaki, the sun and the moon, they're known as lights, right? So this is Genesis 1 and verse 4. So this is after the third day, which is the fourth day. It says 4,000 years, 4,000th year. It says, and the Alahayim, because that word God here is not God as one, but plural, because it was angels, Yahushua and the angels, right? It says, and that's where you get the Hebrew word Alahayim, Allah, which is God or power, but when you add yum, it makes it plural. So Alahayim, meaning plural, gods as many, and that's who was there in the book of Genesis. Genesis 1 and verse 14, and the Alahayim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. Right? And that's also a form of wisdom, right? Because if the light, the moon, and the stars, they're for times and seasons, you get wisdom from that. The tribe of Issachar, they were notable for that. For looking at the stars and the alignments, and the moon, and things like that, to basically gauge what was going on, and basically anticipate whether the harvest, would be plenteous or not. Right? That's a form of wisdom there. So you could say that as well. That you can get wisdom through the sun and the moon that way. Right? Verse 15, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And the Alahayim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. They made the stars also. That's right. So the point being is that the sun and the moon are referred to as light. They're known as lights. And light, illuminates you, and you could be illuminated through light. But symbolically speaking, you could be illuminated through wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, right? So when you go to Baruch 4 and verse 1, it says, this is the book of the commandments of the Most High, and the law that endureth forever. All they that keep it shall come to life, and such as leave it shall die. Turn thee, O Jacob, and take heed of it. Walk in the presence of the light thereof, that thou mayest be illuminated. Right? That you may be enlightened. You see? So the law, statutes, and commandments of the Heavenly Father and the Son that He gave to the nation of Israel, that's light. That's wisdom. Because that's what illuminates you. That's what illuminates your mind. Right? Once again, going to show and prove that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding could be referred to as light, or the sun and the moon. Alright? So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I'm going to end it off there. I want to say, Call Halayim La Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai Bahashem Racha Kodash. Once again, double honors to my teachers, the apostles, and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom and salutations to the elect.